Welcome back to another episode and new season, because why not, of Designing the Best You. Okay, so I want to reiterate what I've been saying in the last few episodes, because I have had so many conversations with all you professionals and looking at clients and looking at my own life, and I've noticed just this pattern, and I want to keep repeating it because I know you guys know what the pattern is, but it's worth repeating. Just like we repeat to our kids over and over, like, hey, do this, or hey, don't do that. And we're like, why can't they get it through their heads? Y'all, why can't you get this through your heads? We keep going through this rat race. It's like we think we keep accomplishing all these things, we're trying to meet all these deadlines. We're trying to keep up with all the things, just at our career in general, at our job. And then we're trying to keep up with all the things in our marriage, and then with our kids, and then all their activities, and just relationships in general. And what about our own personal hobbies? What about that? Heck, what about sleep and rest? Okay. And I know it's a part of life today. And people saying, oh, slow down. Oh, stop doing X and stop doing Y and start doing this and start doing that. That's easy to say, right? It's so easy to say, but I want to make you guys aware of some of the things that are causing things like the topic we're going to be talking about today, so that you can care better, not only for yourself and other people, which I know you guys love to do, is care for other people, but that you can take the gifts that you've been given in this world and actually use them. It's hard when, and I say all this before I get into this, but I say all this because it's so easy to live a life where we're unaware, or we lose track of what we want because we're always on the go. And I know this because I've lived it, and sometimes I still do, okay? But it turns out so many of you guys are feeling the same way. And I want to make sure we address this, because we have this fear of not being able to keep up. We have this fear of missing out, right? The kids these days call it FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And that's not what the intention was for us living here on this earth, is to be like, oh, Sally over here is doing this, so I need to be doing that. And if she can do it, I can do it. Or if Bob over here is doing this, and oh my goodness, I have a heck of a lot better in life than him, then I can do, we're not doing that. Okay, we got to stop that comparison. We got to stop, the fear of missing out. You were designed specifically in this time on this earth for a purpose. And that's what we're here to do, is design the best you, right? So I wanted to get that a little bit out of the way there. But, we've been talking the last handful of episodes on season 6 about survival mode. And that link to my survival mode guide is in the show notes, and a lot of other links. And there's some affiliation links and whatnot for some goodies. There's references to some of the articles and publications that I talk about today. So go ahead and check that out. There's also, probably one of the best things, is getting on a call with me so we can talk about your personal situation and your symptoms and whatnot too, and see how we can work together. All right. And then you can always join the newsletter, all the stuff. So all the goodies are in there. But today I want to ask you a question. Are you having difficulty focusing on a specific maybe line of thoughts, or recalling memories? Maybe you're sitting in a meeting and you're like, wait, I wanted to say something, but I totally forgot. Okay. Maybe just in general, concentrating at work. And I'm not talking about, I'm bored, I don't like this topic, I don't like working with so-and-so, so I'm spacing out. Okay. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the things that are just, it's a lot. It's almost chronic. You might be experiencing something and there's no actual medical definition for it. There's no if you have XYZ symptoms and this is exactly it, we can measure it, right? That's typically if we have a medical thing, we can measure it. Brain fog, right? How do you measure brain fog? Okay, I worked as an engineer for many years, and now in the medical field and career coaching, and I always wanted to measure something. You can't measure brain fog, right? You can't be for X amount of seconds, you probably could, but that's not the topic today. But anyways, most people do experience those symptoms, right? We're going to have those times in our life. Females, during that time of cycle, you're like, what in the world just happened here, right? I thought I was doing this, or your mom, right? You're a mom and you're like, I walk into a room how many times you forget something, you're going to have those. But if it is nonstop and it is affecting like your daily life on a very regular basis, we got some issues to work through. And it could be something more than what you're thinking it is, or just being a tired mom, or just being a busy professional. Okay. There's more to it. And here we get to the root cause. Okay. So, some people are like, oh, it's just because I'm getting older. Not necessarily. But here's the deal. The symptoms actually get worse. The symptoms of brain fog actually get worse. Okay. When we overwork ourselves. And guys, you can set boundaries at work. That will be a whole nother episode. You can set boundaries, okay? You can say, hey, you know what? I don't think I'm capable of doing that. It doesn't mean I'm not capable or within this time frame, or, hey, I need help. I need additional resources. You have that right. And if they fire you for that, it's the wrong company. It's a toxic environment, okay? So the symptoms become worse when we overwork ourselves. But again, like none of you guys do that right. When you don't get enough sleep, and I mean like really good restful sleep, like that deep and REM sleep, okay? I always love my Whoop here because it helps measure that stuff. It is great, okay? When you spend way too much time in front of a screen, I don't care if it's a Kindle, you're like, oh, it's got a light screen, I'm reading. Okay, that's still in front of a screen, you're in front of a tablet, you're on your phone. It's this beautiful thing called nature outside. It helps so much with our health, okay? There's a reason it was created, okay? Maybe you've got an increased amount of exposure to toxins, okay, or stress. And a lot of times too is you may not understand we've got thousands, tens of thousands of toxins around us all the time, and you can't avoid all of them, but you might be able to remove some of those that can help with your brain fog, okay? And again, while there is no standard definition for this lack of mental clarity or brain fog, okay, it's known, it's kind of, I don't want to say well-known or known, but it is. It's kind of this just kind of behind the scenes thing of there's some common symptoms that as health professionals look at, we're like, oh yeah, okay. But when you experience a brain fog, it's not just one thing. It's just like one system doesn't work together, or doesn't work by itself in your body, they all work together. So is brain fog, okay? And we always get to the root cause, all right? There's always at least one root cause to your brain fog, okay? And the reason we're talking about today is because so many of you have done polls. If you guys have been following me on social media, I've done polls. So many of you guys are like, I'm struggling with brain fog. Brain fog's number one, and then weight gain, number two. And I'm going to be honest, they go hand in hand, okay? So, like I said, there isn't really a definition for it, not a measurement for brain fog, but I want to give you what my definition is that I've talked with many of you about, and then go deeper. Okay, so brain fog, I'd say, is characterized by confusion, forgetfulness, a lack of focus and mental clarity. Okay, and again, we're going to have it here and there, but we're not going to, if you're experiencing it all the time, that's some serious issues, okay? Some people joke about it, it's not cool, okay? But then you go down onto a cellular level. Okay, our cells are really cool, right? And on a cellular level, it's actually caused by high inflammation in our body and hormonal imbalance, okay? And men, yes, you have hormones too, and it's imbalanced, okay? And what that does is it affects your ability to focus. It affects your mood, your energy. Ask any woman who is in, is a premenopausal, heck, actually menopausal, but premenopausal during that, week before her period. She's all over the place. She's hormonally imbalanced, okay, during that time. And it's not like her normal, okay? So you kind of are all over the place. You're a little scattered. But us women, we forget most of the time that's that time of month. But we also are like, oh yeah, it is that time of month. So I know I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And here's what I can do to fix it for the most part, right? And if you don't, reach out to me, please. I can help you with that. But here's the thing. A lot of you guys forget that brain fog, and if you don't know, I said forget, kind of funny at the same time. Brain fog is essentially neuro, which is your brain, inflammation. So fancy word for brain fog is neuroinflammation. And neuroinflammation actually compromises what we call neuroplasticity. And for those of you who don't know what neuroplasticity is, it's the ability of our nervous system. We've talked about it so much on our show. Go back to previous episodes and seasons. We talk about our nervous system because it's so important, especially in trauma, and how as we're kids, young babies, that's when it's formed, okay? But it's the ability of the nervous system to change its activity in response to intrinsic or extrinsic, so internal or external stimuli, by reorganizing its structure, its functions, or connections. And the cool thing is we can actually change our brain. So that's that neuroplasticity. So it's its ability to change. So don't think you're too old to change, okay? So I see this stuff right away in the results of the 3 labs I run, but I've talked about that in previous episodes too. So go back and listen to them. But I do want you to keep in mind, there is no specific treatment for brain fog. You're like, why am I listening to this show episode then? There isn't, okay? But then again, I don't diagnose or treat anything specifically. But everything non-specifically, as I said earlier, our body systems work in conjunction with each other. So your digestive system affects your nervous system and vice versa, and all the things, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, you name it, okay? All the stuff works together. Endocrine, it's not separate, okay? There's specialties out there for a reason, for like the emergency aspects of stuff, but to just go to a specialist for some of the basic things, all right, I'll get off my horse on that one, okay? But I do want to help you through the brain fog because there are things that you can do. So whether or not you choose to dive deep into what your true causes are or not, like if you do decide to work with me and get to the root cause and back to the person that God created you to be, which is thriving, not just surviving. Like I said earlier, head to the show notes, okay? There's going to be a book call link in there. Get on it, okay? I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss out on that. Book that ASAP, okay? And then let me back up. Okay, first, I want to go through here what the potential causes of brain fog could be. And again, these aren't to put you down. These are for you to be aware. Okay, so you can take action to heal, because once we're aware and we have the knowledge and education, it's our responsibility to do something with it, not to ignore it. Right? That's like when we give our kids information, or we give our employees information, or even our bosses information. We expect them to do something with it, right? I'm giving you information right now, so I'm expecting you to do something with it, okay? And it's your choice whether you do or not, okay? But the choice to do or not do something with it is going to affect you moving forward, okay? Just saying. So anyways, there's a number of causes. I'm going to make a list here, and it's not an exhaustive list, but it's the ones that I've seen that are most common. A number of factors that do cause brain fog. Okay, as I said earlier, a high level of hormonal changes, and that usually happens during pregnancy. I see so many issues when women, after they've given birth, that they're like, what just happened? I used to this, and then now this, and now I'm growing chin hair, and blah, blah, like all this stuff. Okay, there's so many different things. Another one is our fabulous COVID, and it's usually related to, the brain fog is related to the long haulers, okay? But we can get through that. Depression and anxiety, autoimmune diseases like lupus and MS. Oh man, that one can cause a lot of things if you don't have that under control. Lack of sleep, poor or no exercise. What I mean by poor exercise, if you're doing the wrong type of exercise for your body, you're gonna get brain fog. You're gonna have that inflammation in your brain, okay? If your body's saying, no, I should only do slow, like somatics and yoga, not even yoga sometimes, and you're doing HIIT and hard workouts and you're biking and doing marathons, you're going to have issues, okay? So if you need help again with that, let me know. All right. There's also, if you have the electromagnetic, the EMF, okay, radiation from your computer, your mobile devices, other smart devices, I highly recommend we use, it's over there somewhere, we use covers for our Wi-Fi. We turn it off at nights, cover our computers. I never put them on my lap. Phones, make sure that they're in airplane mode when you're in Wi-Fi, and use speaker. Don't put it up against your ear. Okay, some of that stuff can cause that neural inflammation, okay? When you have reduced blood flow to the brain from various issues, when you have low blood sugar levels, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I have a headache. Oh my gosh, I have a headache. Headaches are brain inflammation, brain fog. That's what it is, okay? You have childhood trauma, okay? Any form of PTSD, complex PTSD or PTSD from whatever it is, an accident, war, whatever it is, okay? When your amino acids, your vitamins, your minerals, and antioxidants, when they're not there in your diet, so many of us are eating processed foods and those things are eradicated from our diets, and our body needs those that are building blocks for our body. Chemotherapy. I know a lot of you have gone through cancer and chemotherapy has worked, but chemotherapy actually triggers what's called a cytokine storm, okay? And then that can cause some brain inflammation too. Any kind of pollution, chemical substances, toxins, insecticides, pesticides that accumulate in your body and your liver ends up being overloaded, okay, to the point that it can't detox. You're struggling sweating, you're struggling eradicating your poops, like just any of that type of stuff you're really struggling with, okay? Food sensitivities, again, the list could go on, but these are the ones that I do see the most, okay? And which means if you're experiencing those, then you're not alone, because there's so many of you out there experiencing it, which means we have a wealth of opportunity to help you, okay? So those are the ones that I see that are going on. And as I said in previous episodes before, I've compiled another list of, those are the causes, sorry, not the symptoms. This next list that I have for you, and I know you guys love lists, which is why I do this, and I like lists, is there's not an exhaustive list of symptoms or anything like that, but there are things that do correlate with brain fog that I want to bring up, right? If you have trouble sleeping, you have insomnia, maybe you, again, like you have that attention, people are like, oh, I have ADHD or ADD. I'm like, well, let's take a deeper look and see if that's true or not. There are a handful of people, yes, that truly do have something like that. And there are changes that can help make that better without medication, sometimes with medication, okay? But most of the time it's some kind of brain inflammation or other inflammation in the body that's causing things to happen in the brain, okay? Headaches, impaired cognitive function, forgetfulness, right? You're like, I just looked at him and what is his name again? He just told me. It's like literally the only thing he told me, right? Mood swings, especially when you have a lot of irritation, you get irritable really quickly. That's a nervous system dysregulation, but that is a symptom too. Okay, you have low energy, you have lack of motivation, you have extreme fatigue. And I'm not just talking because you're up with the baby or your kids came and interrupted you, or like last night, freaking smoke detector went off. I'm like, why? Oh yeah, the batteries. Right? Maybe you have a frequent loss of train of thought. And when I mean frequent, it's a very regular thing. Okay. So now again, we all have experienced this type of stuff throughout our lives from time to time. And there's seasons that we go through. But if these symptoms are going on for more than a few days, we got to dive in deep. No, guys, to the root cause. Otherwise, we're going to stay stuck and struggle to advance in our careers and the life that God planned for us. It did for me for a long time, so I understand. I thought I was like, oh, it's the pressure at work. I've got all these things I have to do. I have all these people reporting to me. I've got all these projects I have to do. I've got investors I got to deal with. I've got quality things I have to deal with. I've got, oh my goodness, all the things, right? And then I thought it was after I took a sabbatical from that, I'm like, oh, it's because I'm a mom of tiny humans. But that still didn't go away. And I don't want that for you. Some of you guys have been dealing with this for years. It took me years and almost 4 decades now to uncover the multiple root causes that I was dealing with. And I sit here with clients and I've got paperwork right here of clients' lab results. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I don't want you guys to suffer any longer than you need to. And sometimes we do need to suffer in order to grow, right? But I'm not talking about that kind of suffering. The unintentional suffering that we can't avoid by helping our bodies heal the way that they're supposed to, okay? And here's something crazy that some of you guys don't know. Brain fog. Listen up to those, you guys, listen up. I'm telling you, this is huge right now. Brain fog is linked to thyroid and adrenal issues. You're like, what? Yep. Okay. Many of you guys who have hypothyroidism and or, usually they're connected, Hashimoto's, perhaps even Addison's disease. It's very rare. So I would question whether you have HPA axis dysfunction or Addison's disease. But even the HPA axis dysfunction, you'll think that your brain fog and your fatigue is what linked to what you call flare-ups, right? Everyone's like, oh, I'm having a flare, I'm having a flare, I'm having a flare, I'm having a flare, I'm having a flare. I think we actually use that as Band-Aids and excuses too. And we're like, oh, people now are calling these autoimmune diseases and any little symptom a flare-up. Symptoms, guys, are the body's way of saying, yo, slow down, stop, something's wrong inside. And now I'm giving you an external symptom, something that you can actually feel now. Take notes. And a lot of times we stuff it just like we stuff our feelings, okay? And so while some of this can be true, you could be having a little flare-up because of something you ate, like you had gluten and you're not supposed to have gluten. You're like, okay, now I have bloating or I have diarrhea or whatever it is. I have a headache now. Like I get headaches if I have eggs. Okay, I know that's what it's from, and it'll go away after a day or two, okay? Sometimes a little bit longer, but at least if you know that, then you're like, okay, that's what happened. But, and there's many other underlying causes too that your doctors aren't going to see, and they're probably missing, and it's not intentional. It's they just weren't trained in that stuff like I am. And with any set of symptoms, we have to be careful too, because we're like, a lot of us are like, brain fog is from this condition or disease that I've been diagnosed with. Okay, we have to be really careful of that, because as with any set of symptoms, they do overlap. So how can you pinpoint just, one or two symptoms as being a thyroid issue or a brain issue or a mental condition or an adrenal flare? Adrenal flare. You can't. Okay, our body works together. Okay, just like a well-running machine, a car, that you can't have like one part without it working, right? You might be able to for a little bit, just like at work. You can't have, let's pull an engineering firm, for example, like manufacturing plant. You can't have you can't run a shop without a plant manager. You could probably for a little bit, but then it's going to have chaos, and then someone's finally going to step up, right? So you can't ship a product without it being quality inspected. I mean, you could, right? But then your business is going to get shut down because you're not going to have someone inspecting it. Those type of things. So, but I will tell you one thing in it all. And I've said this for years, even before I was a health practitioner, before I was a career coach, and I was just talking about my own personal health issues and doing my own personal research. Stress is not your friend. Stress causes our adrenals to pump out extra hormones. We've talked about this. Shifts our body from like a relaxing and digesting and healing state to a fight or flight. I will tell you personally, we recently moved, and we moved away from all the toxic environment that we've experienced our whole life and to a place that I'm not going to disclose right now. And I was having, before we moved, all kinds of digestive issues. I literally, and I'm very open and honest and very vulnerable about this stuff, I wasn't able to poop on my own for an average. It would take about 6 to 7 days. That's not healthy, okay? Because I was so stressed out, because I was so hyper vigilant, because of, like, all these different things. And I had to do enemas on a regular basis. Now, enemas are good for a short period of time, but I was like, I gotta get this released. I mean, I was down in magnesium, I was down in vitamin C, anything to just release it, and it wasn't happening. But the second we moved, within 24 hours, and for the next 5 days straight, I was doing what a normal human being does, is pooping once or twice a day, okay? And that's because my body wasn't in that fight or flight anymore. And so, see, even as your health practitioner, there's still things that I deal with too. And that's why I always encourage you guys is to work with someone who's either going through it and experiencing life with you, or has already been through it and is here to help guide you on that path as well. Okay, not someone who doesn't know. If you walk into a doctor's office and you're like, okay, I have Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism and whatever else, and I'm dealing with this for trauma and I'm dealing with this for work, and they're just like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Run, okay, run. Ask them the questions. You have them. I'm going off on a tangent a little bit here, but for a good reason. You have the right as a patient, as a client, anywhere, right, to ask the questions of, hey, how many clients, like, for example, when I was misdiagnosed with Addison's disease, but I thought I had it and everyone thought I had it, I would go into offices and they'd be like, oh yeah, I've had a couple patients with Addison's disease. I'm like, oh. And as I learned, I would ask them questions. How many? I've had a couple. Oh, great. Can you tell me a little about their experiences? Now you can still, as a practitioner, talk about those patients without breaking HIPAA. And all of them couldn't tell me at all. And that would make me nervous, because I'm like, well, how do you know what to do? You're just reading it out of a textbook for a rare disease. right? So you have the right to ask, like, hey, you know what? I have Hashimoto's. How many patients have you dealt with that? About how many? Right? What have been experiences? What are some similarities that they have? Here's my story. Is my story similar to theirs? How have you helped them? You have that right. Just because they have the word doctor at the end or beginning or end of their name and they have X degrees on their wall doesn't mean that they have the answers you need. So do your research, right? But anyways, when stress, it affects our adrenals. It causes our adrenals to pump out those extra hormones, and it shifts our body from that relaxing state to that digesting, that healing state, right? The body's energy is shifted from doing those useless things, right? Like growing beautiful hair or metabolizing or making hormones or whatever it is doing. And the body's resources are reserved to make that cortisol, make the adrenaline in those adrenals, and they're pumped out through our veins so we can keep going and going and going, right? When you get, if any of you guys have been in an accident, like a car accident, you're like, right, you're not pooping at the time, you're not thinking about peeing, you're not thinking about eating, you're not thinking about digestion, you're not thinking about growing your beautiful hair, whatever it is. You're like, okay, what do I have to do to make sure everyone's okay, make sure blah, 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 like, right, all the stuff. Where's my phone so I can call, like, that's what your body is focused on, okay? And eventually, we end up running out of nutrients that are required when we're in that constant stress mode, the constant fight or flight mode. We run out of nutrients that are required for proper adrenal function. And then we get into that, you hear this thrown around. There's no medical term, but a lot of people are throwing it around, that adrenal fatigue, or I like to call it HP axis dysfunction, because it really is. It's your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenal axis, right? Your axis, we all learned that in school, function. And when our body's in that exhaustive state and struggling to heal, or you're dealing with the brain fog, you're like, I can't get rid of it. I can't. I want you to look at yourself because you're stressed. You're worn down. You're not taking care of yourself. You're trying to take on too much. No one's going to give you the award of being Superman or Superwoman. And I say this because that's what I was doing. We have to look deep down and say, okay, why do I want that award, that trophy for that? Maybe you don't, right? You don't want that external award, but you're like, can someone notice me? That comes from childhood. Maybe you're striving to seek your parents' attention like I was, and you were never good enough. You were never worthy enough. You were never, the level to reach to get their worthiness was just all over the place. It constantly was moving around. Maybe you had conditional love, and so you're constantly striving for that because that's what a child does, okay? And so then you're in that constant stress mode all the time because you want people to notice you. You want the next set of accolades. You want the next degree. You want the next school that you're going to. You want the next biggest house or car or whatever it is, okay? And we all do those things. Yes, I'm not saying any of those things are wrong, but we have to look at our root cause, our motive for that, and dive deep, and then how it's affecting our system, like our adrenals, okay? But when we are in that exhaustive state, our adrenals are just so worn down. It doesn't mean they don't produce enough. I have tests that run that shows whether your cortisol is staying in your body and it's just not getting used up, or it actually is getting used up and what's causing that. I have the test, okay? But I do want to go over like the 4 types of stress that I've worked through, and I'll dive deeper onto future episodes on. I just want you guys to start thinking about these things. There's 4 types of stress that turn on that fight or flight response. So we have mental or emotional. They could be together or separate, okay? Sleep disorders. When we have metabolic, or some people like to call it glycemic dysregulation, okay? That's where like the weight gain comes in. And chronic inflammation, okay? And all my tests, my 3 tests, nail it out, okay? I can figure it out by just looking at those 3 tests and knowing what your health history is and the stress and trauma that you've been through, okay? So if I have an answer that you need, guess what? I'm going to give it to you. And I do have a very specific step-by-step process to uncover your root cause. And then we create a protocol that is unique to you. Okay? That's why I don't take on hundreds of clients. That's why you guys aren't going to see me put out there these webinars and all these different things, because our health is very specific. And I sit there and I spend a lot of time. You can talk to my previous clients and look at testimonials. I spend a lot of time with you guys and understanding really what's going on in your life and hearing you and feeling you. Okay, it's so important. Okay, so the first step I always recommend, and if you're working with me, you'll get this. If not, you can reach out. I can express to you what labs to run, but you also have to make sure you have a practitioner who understands them and how they all correlate together. So that's the problem I've seen people have. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go get those tests done. And then they come back months later and like, okay, so that didn't work on my own, and trying to do different practitioners and whatever, and they didn't understand it and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the first ones are to get the labs run. Okay. And the three that I get done is I get mineral testing done, because our body doesn't just use vitamins, it uses minerals too. Okay. Hormone urine testing. Okay. And stool gut testing. That covers most of the stuff, guys. Okay. Then covers 90% of the stuff that we deal with. Sometimes if I've got thyroid patients or I see something going on with that, I say, hey, we got to go get your thyroid tested so we see the levels and then what we can do about it. Okay. Because it's not just handing a medication over and saying, take this. There's specific levels of thyroid issues that can use medication. Most of them can't, by the way. And then other ones that you can use that different supplementation and foods and lifestyle changes. Okay. But if you choose not to work with me, I want to state some things that you can start doing now. Okay. And you guys are going to love to hate me. Clean up your diet. Clean up your eating habit. I hate the word diet. I don't know why I say it all the time. You guys relate to it. I hate it. Clean up your eating habits. I know everyone's like, oh my gosh, don't go for the fad diets. That's not what I'm talking about. Yes, paleo and AIP are good. Don't go keto, please don't. It does more damage in the long term. They do, like paleo, I end up putting a lot of clients on per se, outside of their food sensitivities. And AIP works for a short period of time, but it can be expensive, okay? And it's really hard to keep up, especially with you busy professionals. You're like, oh my gosh, And we got inflation on top of that, right, going on right now. But I do mean to eat less things of sugars, less processed foods, if any. Stay away from gluten, guys. There was a recent study that was done where participants who ate gluten, whether they were celiac, not, whatever, reported 51% of them reported they had headaches. Go figure. 48% reported brain fog. 31% balance issues. 19% they had tingling. Okay, so that's just one study. Sorry, allergies here, grass pollen. Just one study, and there's so many more. So remove the gluten. There's so many other foods out there you can enjoy, so many of them. Also stay away from alcohol. It's actually a double whammy, if not a triple whammy, because first of all, it creates inflammation in your brains, right? Anyone who's been even a little bit tipsy, you're like, whoa, what's going on, right? It struggles in our livers, right? Our liver's already trying to do all the things, so many things that we don't give it enough respect for. And it has no nutritional value. Oh, and let's add to it is it causes a lot of histamine in our body, which causes a lot of issues and allergies and things like that. So just stay away from it. It's not fun anyways, okay? We're a sober home now, and it's so much better without it. And my goal is always, when I tell you guys, eat as many vegetables out there. There's so many beautiful colors of the rainbow that you can have. Go to the store and pick out a new one each week. Okay, try it out. Look up, there's a cool thing called the internet now. Go to Pinterest or whatever and type in, eggplant recipes, and you can come up with so many of them. So that's always my goal, is just aim for as many rainbows as you possibly can. And my favorite, I always add them into my smoothies. And I can't see it, and I usually it mixes together instead of just inhaling it, or I can inhale it faster than I can just eat it, right? The next one is, outside of cleaning up our eating habits, is to get adequate rest. Okay, we all know that quality sleep makes all the difference in our days, right? No one wants crabby people in their lives, whether they're at office, whether they're at home, from a lack of sleep, right? Sleep is the number one way to recharge your adrenals, recharge your thyroid. Okay, it allows our body to to release different hormones, like the human growth hormone. It allows our body to rest and digest. Okay, we all have heard the 6 to 8 hours, whatever works for you. Okay, I always tell my clients, get to bed before 10 o'clock and wake up by 6. Just is what it is. If you need to accelerate your healing, really getting 10 to 12 hours is huge. When you have emotional trauma you're working through, you're grieving something, really give yourself a lot of time. I mean, the past couple of weeks, legit, we've been going to bed, like my husband and I, right after the kids have gone down. So 8:30. And it has felt great. Okay. We've all woken up in a lot better moods, things like that. Okay. So the third thing, and I have a guide on this as well, is balance your blood sugar. Okay. A lot of us want these heavy carbohydrate rich foods that cause our blood sugar to spike way too quickly. Okay. And it causes nervousness. It causes lightheadedness, anxiety, fatigue, and these swings back and forth of this carbs in our diet. Here's the thing. It weakens your adrenals. Okay. And it causes an increase in your thyroid antibodies. Okay. Not cool. So if you learn how to balance your blood sugar, I do a finger prick. Some people don't like doing that. There's those continuous glucose monitors, things like that. When you start to balance it out and you see where your body's at, guess what? I'm telling you, you're going to create noticeable improvements in how you feel. Okay. I'll put that guide in the show notes so you guys can grab that as well. And then the fourth thing, there is a big source of inflammation, right? We talked about chronic inflammation is chronic infections. I highly recommend getting tested for infections like H. pylori, Blastocystis hominis, and Candida. Those are really big ones that kind of stick in our body if we don't take care of them and really affect our brain fog. Really, really do. Okay. I only test, the only test I trust for this is my gut test that I use, the stool test, and it shows me many different aspects, different infections, not just these ones too, and how they're affecting how we're digesting things too. So that's why I like that one. But you can run the ones that you would like if you don't feel comfortable. And then the fifth one, as I said, the hardest one to implement, yes, yet the one that is just the absolute best for us, reducing stress. And you're like, you weren't going to say that one, Vanessa. It's still the hardest one for me to implement too. I only had 2 settings when I was, before I was becoming a practitioner, before I uncovered all the trauma that I've had, was go and sleep. That was it. I didn't know how to relax. I didn't know how to smell the roses. I didn't know how to turn off. I didn't know how to unwind. My husband, when we were first dating, he's like, you can't even sit down and watch part of a movie without getting up and going and doing something, or sitting there. I could sit there, but I'd be folding laundry or be knitting or something. I didn't know how to rest. Okay. And a lot of you guys don't either. Okay. A big part of it is because it's how, like me personally, it was because of how I was wired from a young age. All the verbal, the emotional, environmental abuse from childhood. It was nonstop. I was not allowed to sit around. Like as a child, I had to be doing something, or I was being watched. And many of you guys are like that too. So some ways to, very simple, may not be easy, but simple ways to reduce stress. At work, try to eliminate, simplify, delegate, automate. Okay. Practice being more flexible. Don't be so like rigid of like, this is how it has to be. Don't be so controlling. Don't micromanage. Okay. Another one is avoid burning the candle both ends. Do things you like to do. Some things we're going to have to do that we don't want to do, that we have to do, but do that. Here's one of my favorite ones. You guys love to put this on your resume, or you get mad at me because it's not on there. Multitasking. Stop it. There's no such thing. You can't focus on 100 different things at once. You can't even focus on 5 things at once. Our brains were never designed for that. They were designed for one thing at a time. You might be talking and something might trigger you, and you pause that thought and you go write down your grocery list or whatever it is, or something you missed. That's not multitasking. Okay. You can't do one thing well if you're trying to do many other things. So stop that. Okay. Give it your full attention. That helps with the neuroplasticity too. Okay. Get a massage to unwind. It's one of my favorites. I go to Hand and Stone Massage and get a monthly massage, like $79 a month. Go in. They can roll over too. If you're like, hey, I don't need one this month, which who doesn't need a massage, but whatever. Start a journal. I know it seems like it's little girl, teeny bopper type thing, but take notes of what makes you feel better and what makes you feel worse. Take notes, even the people who you're around that drain your energy. Okay. For a while, until my husband became sober, and he started to work on his anger issues, my energy was literally drained from being around my husband. And it took a while. That did take a while. But until I wrote that down and kept praying about it and kept reading it and kept writing about it and my thoughts and feelings around it and started setting boundaries, I couldn't get through it, right? But until I started doing that, when I started doing that, things in my body and my mind started calming down too. Okay, so I really encourage it. So I really do hope some of these strategies resonate with you, and just take at least one and start doing it. Don't be the go-getter and try to do all of them. Pick one, okay? And many of you are going to need to come up with your own list. Maybe one of these are like, yeah, something to reduce the stress, okay? And most likely the biggest thing that you're going to need is to work with a practitioner who's dedicated to your success. Not because they want to make a buck, not because they want to have hundreds of clients, they want to have accolades, they want to be noticed in a paper or online or whatever it is, okay? Work with someone who is dedicated to your success. I know it's hard to make time for you when you have all these responsibilities, okay? But somehow you have to schedule time for yourself. I don't even care. I have clients who meet with me on their lunch break and they're eating. I don't care. Okay? This is what you've got to do. The world needs your gifts, absolutely needs your gifts, and ideas and talents and all the things, experiences, all that stuff combined. The world needs that. But it's really hard when you're overwhelmed and you have this nasty brain fog going on, right? So, and here's the thing too, I want to leave you with. We often expect doctors or practitioners, even people expect me, to heal you. Healing starts within you. You have to have such a strong desire to heal, be so sick of being sick and tired that you want to do it. Be dedicated like you are your job because you get paid for it, okay? And that's why I do what I do, okay? Like I said, there's a step-by-step process. I have an engineering background, it's proven, okay? I don't give you guys anything that's not proven. And if I do, I tell you, hey, this is a work in progress. We're going to change some things here and there based on what I see, okay? But if you're ready for that, step-by-step process, you're like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm so tired of the brain fog. I'm so tired of gaining weight and I don't know why. I think I'm doing the right things. There's a link in the notes. I told you to get on a call with me and begin building trust with me and ask the questions, and I can give you some of the answers for that. And if you're not ready for that, I have two options. Binge on my content on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on the podcast, binge on it. And then the second one is to download one of those guides, the Survival Mode Guide or the Blood Sugar Hacks Guide, and start really healing yourself. Start healing yourself. So that's it for today. But whatever decision you make, what I want you to do is I challenge you to not make the decision of doing nothing. Change takes time. And now you have the valuable information. So what do you have to do? You have to do something with it. You're required to do something with it, okay? But it's up to you. You will slip up on your healing journey. You may feel like you're stuck, but I promise if you work with me through the process, you will be taking steps forward and you will be healing, okay? You're going to be able to advance your career, evolve your career from barely getting by, surviving, to thriving, okay? We get to take charge. We ourselves get to take charge of how we are responding to things, okay? And when we overcome the hidden roadblocks, like the brain fog is one of them, okay, we can face each and every day differently. And I am here to strengthen you and set you on that path, doing all you were created to do with the right mental, emotional, physical, and strategic health. So until next time, let's keep on designing the best you.